Hello guys, happy Sunday and welcome to Professor Vipin's YouTube channel. In today's video, we're going to understand reservation in India. Now, as I was doing some research, I discovered a lot of interesting things about reservations, so let's understand them. So the quota systems that favor caste and other communities existed prior independence, even during, of course, the British India. Now, demands of various communities was made, and especially the Maharaja of the princely state of Kolhapur was one of the first to introduce the idea of reservation in 1891. Now, he introduced reservation for non-Brahmin and backward classes. Now, I tried to dig some details on how do you decide what is a backward class, especially from something related to 1891, but I wasn't really able to get some information on that. However, post our independence, we all know about how much emphasis was made on reservation. Now, after independence, of course, the government of India started to make additional provisions, especially for the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribe communities. However, an additional category was introduced in 1980 onwards, which we refer to as OBC or other backward castes, backward communities. Now, in order for you to get reservation, it also depends on central government approval and also the state government approval of how much quota the state government is able to provide to various state government institutions. So, for example, if you want to be part of, say, the Kerala Service Commission, the Public Service Commission of Kerala, they have in their quota system 6% given for Muslims. Now, this is something that the Kerala government can have in their state, and different states, of course, can have different quotas for different state government jobs. For example, in Karnataka, the transport system in Bangalore is referred to as BMTC. Now, BMTC could have a criteria saying that for SCs, we have 5%, for SCs, we have 10%, and so on. Now, that need not be the same, of course, in every state. However, the government of India will decide what is a community that can be given the status of, say, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, and of course, other backward communities or other backward castes. Now, historically, the idea of reservation was implemented in a very positive manner with the idea of uplifting these communities simply because they had been oppressed for many generations. So the idea was we will make it easier for them to improve their lifestyle and make their livelihood, of course, a lot better than what it was before. So let's consider this when it comes to how communities are oppressed versus how this country was oppressed. So we all know, we've read enough history, and especially Shashi Tharoor has written about how much of India's wealth was eaten away by the British. So a large part of the wealth was taken away, and India was taken several years back into the Dark Ages because of how much of wealth was eaten away. So many communities in India too, thanks to oppression, they have in fact lost their livelihood for many generations. So in order to make things better for them and make their, may have them go through a turning point, the government introduced the idea of reservations. So like I said, the idea of introducing reservations was, of course, a very positive initiative. Later on, of course, reservations became a powerful way to get vote banks. And now people decided to implement reservations based on different categories. For example, there's not just reservation based on caste, there's reservations based on physical disabilities, economic backgrounds, religion, and of course, gender as well. There are even many colleges as well that tell you that, our admissions, we give, say, 30% to the girls, and we give our admissions to, say, only a certain religious group. Like I know many convent institutions prefer to give admissions to Christian families rather than, in fact, any other religious group. And this is the way, in fact, the way reservation system has changed over the many, many decades. Now, how is reservation different from a minority group? Now, the Supreme Court has in fact reinforced the idea of what is a minority under Article 30 of the Indian Constitution. And it says the Supreme Court held that a minority, either linguistic or religious, is determinable only by reference to demography of the state and not by taking into consideration of the population of the country as a whole. Now, this is where it gets very interesting. Initially, the government of India would consider the idea of a minority as any group that is less than 3% of the population. Now, the Muslim population in India is nearly 20%, and they nonetheless have a minority status. The Christian population is about 12%, and they also have a minority status. The only few groups that I can consider that are actually a minority would be the Sikhs and the Jain community, which recently got the status of minority. So here, if it's less than 3%, you get the status of minority. More than that, your minority status should actually be taken away. But nonetheless, of course, for vote bank politics, we have Christians and Muslims as well, given the status of minority. Now, this is where I started to see how interesting things get, especially when it comes to Muslim reservation. So I was going through a long list of communities that are divided into various smaller sections. And these guys, some of them get reservation, some of them do not get reservation, which I've found extremely interesting. So, for example, in Karnataka, there is a community called as the Gowda community. Now, the Gowdas are people who are historically landlords. In fact, we've had a prime minister as well from the same community, H.D. Deve Gowda, and his son, H.D. Kumaraswamy, happens to be the chief minister of Karnataka. Now, when I saw that the Gowda community, in fact, gets reservations, I was a little surprised. So I went on to ask a few of my students, hey, why don't you guys take advantage of this, especially when it comes to joining, say, a good college for your post-graduation or something, why don't you consider? So he said, no, sir, our Gowdas don't get reservation. There are other type of Gowdas that get reservation. And I was a little surprised. What the hell? I thought all Gowdas are the same because their name, in fact, says they have a name and their surname tends to be Gowda. But later on, it turns out within that community, you have smaller groups which tend to get reservation, which do not get reservation. So, for example, I'll take my community. Now, I'm a Iyengar, I'm a Brahmin. And within Iyengars, we have different communities. So, for example, there is a Mandyam Iyengar. And within Mandyam Iyengar, I have a smaller family title which is referred to as Kadubi. So, my full name is actually Vipin Mandyam Kadubi. Now, there are other Iyengars as well that I know. For example, there are people who are have the name as Kambam. There are other Iyengars as well with the similar K followed by a few more letters, which talk about their family group as well that is part of it. Now, there are other Iyengars, and like I said, apart from Mandyam Iyengars, there are Hebbar Iyengars, there are Hasan Iyengars, and so on. So, just like that, I believe Gowdas also have the similar category distinction where, depending upon your origin, you have different groups, in fact, which have the similar title. Now, based on that, the reservation can be given to some of these communities, while others can be taken away from the reservation assignment. Now, this applies even for Muslims as well. The surnames of Muslims is dependent on whether or not they end up getting a title, or rather when they end up getting a reservation status or not. Not every Muslim, in fact, ends up getting that reservation status. This is something that I found very interesting about the reservation system. As powerful as it is as a vote bank, if you are under the impression that, okay, for example, I'm a Brahmin, and a politician says that, okay, Brahmins will end up getting reservation, we need to do a research on what group of Brahmins actually get that reservation, what groups of Brahmins do not get that reservation. And this is where reservation gets more complex than what we actually understand. Now, I too, just like many of you guys, was under the impression that if you assign reservation to one community, the entire population of that community ends up getting that benefit. But in reality, only a small population of that community ends up getting that benefit. So as powerful as it is as a vote bank, many times it's simply a marketing gimmick and not really many people end up getting that benefit of reservation as such. But yes, it does get that politician all those votes. So like I said, if a politician goes about saying that, yeah, I'm going to give Brahmins the reservation status, I need not be happy. I need to investigate whether or not this reservation applies to me and then see how beneficial this will be for me. Now, the other criticism that people have about reservation is that it restricts the quality of people when it comes to getting jobs at government companies. True, just like any policy that's implemented for any system, like I said, if GST is implemented, someone gets the benefit, someone takes a punch. Reservation is implemented, someone gets the benefit, someone takes a punch. It has to work that way. That's the way in which economics works. So, yes, there are situations where you see that, especially when it comes to applying for government jobs. There will be situations where one community may get preference compared to another community, but that shouldn't deter you from applying for a job. In fact, especially for higher education as well, I noticed that for getting into the IIMs, the general merit category is 90, well, the 90 percentile, where the SC/STs have it at 70 percentile. So it's not necessary that you should be deterred from that. It's okay because it doesn't really affect a large population. At least it hasn't affected any of the people I know around me. In fact, I was cursing the reservation system once and I realized, hey, that's the policy of the institution. You can't really do much about it. I had applied for my graduation in Christian in college in Bangalore. And now they're a very big institution, of course. And one of the things that they had in the application form is what type of Christian am I? Am I a Protestant? Am I a Catholic, Roman Catholic, and so on? So, of course, I said none of the above. In fact, there wasn't any other option at all there in the application form. So, even though I'm very sure I did the test well, I still didn't get the seat. But that doesn't bother me because that institution is designed for supporting Christians. And if they are giving them first preference, I don't really blame them because that is the policy of that institution. It's a private institution, by the way, folks. They're allowed to, in fact, give preference to Christians if they want to. And yeah, private institutions can get away with that kind of rules as well, where they can prefer to give seats to someone as well. So reservation, just like anything else, has its drawbacks, and it is, in fact, a primitive system. But we have gone so deep into the system that it's very difficult for the country to completely, withdraw from the whole reservation practice. But so far so good. It hasn't really caused any major problems or taking the country back significantly. It's only something that a small group of people, like I said, actually end up getting the benefit of. And I'm sure that it doesn't really deter the growth of the country to any significant extent. And for those who say that in US you don't have reservations, you do. You do have reservations in many parts of the world. You do have reservations based on your ethnicity in many parts of the world. Caste, on the other hand, is mostly dominant in India, but definitely do have reservation policies around the world. Do your research, do your homework. So anyway, folks, thank you for listening to me. Do like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thank you for watching Professor Vipin. See you guys. Have a nice day. Bye.